Why do you come to us?
Why do you come?
The waiting is over, boys. Finally, the trailer for Avatar 2, The Way of Water dropped. And it had me thinking, when was Avatar 2 announced? It turns out, in January of 2010. Meaning the writers had over 10 years of time to come up with a coherent story that made sense and was believable, unlike in the first Avatar. Now that might sound controversial to some, but please hear me out. Avatar 1 was undoubtedly one of the biggest financial successes in movie history, with nearly $3 billion in the box office alone. However, did it achieve that result with its phenomenal writing? I highly doubt that. I think it is more likely it had something to do with its technical aspects. The movie had a budget of over $237 million and was released in 2009. With an inflation taken into account, it would have had a budget of $330 million in today's money. To put that into perspective, that is more money spent than on the first season of House of the Dragon, which only cost $200 million. And that astronomical budget really shows, as all the Oscars in the first Avatar received had something to do with its visuals, more or less. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think that the story was dog shit. I think it was fine plot and logic-wise. However, it was at least debatable why they only sent a ground mission when they had a big spaceship in orbit. You know, the humans could have done something like 40K style.
Justice account in all balance. The Emperor protects.
But more on that later. Despite that, it didn't need to have a perfect plot to be a very good movie, because too complicated of a plot would have distracted the audience at the time from the astonishing, never-seen-before visuals. But if you want to know more about plot holes, watch these two videos, one from How It Should Have Ended, which makes the biggest plot hole abundantly clear, in a short, animated manner, and one from Generation Films, which questions the morals of the story and character motivations on a deeper level, as well as coming to a different conclusion on how the actual bad guys in this movie are. The link for both videos is in the description, and I can only wholeheartedly recommend them. However, to cut it short, in the first movie we had first failed negotiations, followed by a failed ground invasion that was supported by aircraft. Both the aircraft and the ground invasion got decimated by the natives. In the first movie, it was kind of understandable. A big mining company, not expecting heavy resistance by the natives, got their asses handed to them when they seeked out a direct confrontation. Combine that with some questionable tactics on the human side, and the native Na'vi won easily. Completely understandable and in the realm of possibility. Now, with the required background knowledge out of the way, we can look at Avatar 2. We got exactly the same thing again. But now the natives have an even bigger terrain advantage, namely the water. But the second movie is different, dear director. You can't just pull the same plot again, just with water, because that would require that no character from humanity's side learned anything out of the last failed expedition. Which is abysmally bad writing, unless it plays somehow in a different timeline. But we can rule out that different timeline hypothesis relatively quickly when we see the children of the main character from the first movie. Meaning Avatar 2 is a direct, canonical continuation of Avatar 1.
But why would that make no sense?
Because humanity in the second movie knows what awaits them, and they should know some basic physics.
But why physics?
Because E equals mc square, meaning that energy is determined by parts mass and largely speed. And since humanity has access to space, and the Na'vi don't, humans could target fire without any resistance before sending a landing force to mine that planet. Now the humans don't even need to use nukes or other bombs, just a sufficiently sized space rock that happens to float around, also in our solar system. So we don't need this 40K complete destruction scene.
The Emperor protects.
Those big fucking attacks would probably also destroy the resources we try to mine. So we need another form of devastation that would target the inhabitants, preferably on land, since in the first movie the biggest ore reserves were spotted on land. Now, how is the movie called? Ways of Water. And what does water normally do when it forms a huge-ass wave? That's right, it sweeps away any living creature. However, it doesn't destroy mountains. And it conveniently goes away after a couple of weeks or months. No radiation, no destruction of ore.
But how do we create such a wave?
That's very simple. We just need a sufficiently large asteroid and guide it to hit Pandora in its ocean. As a matter of fact, we can do that today with today's technology. Maybe you have heard the news that recently NASA altered the trajectory of an 11 billion pounds or 5 million tons for my European brothers space rock named Dimorphos. We can do that today with today's technology, and we are as far away from interstellar travel as the old Greeks were from the first moon landing. Interestingly enough, the space rock doesn't even need to be that big. All that the humans would need to do in a movie is to find an about 500 meter big asteroid and either ram it with a drone or tow it with your big ass ship and release it in a collision course with the Pandora's ocean. Then an about 100 meter high wave will wash away any natives on land. They just need to wait till the water flows back into the oceans and rivers, and then they can happily mine all they want. And if the exact mining location is too far away from the ocean, just use a bigger rock. That's the beauty with space rocks. They come in all shapes and sizes. Now, that might sound kind of evil, condemning thousands to death, and it is. But when I watch a movie and see a character that is meant to be 100% ruthless and efficient, I want to see him make a logical decision that would make the most sense in the given scenario. Be honest, who wants to see a movie where the antagonist is an idiot? And the movie is trying to make me believe that not one on this huge spaceship with thousands of crew, who many of would be either engineers or military personnel, forwarded the easiest and most simple, surefire way to solve the native problem on continent X, before sending vulnerable ground forces down the planet. That's utterly ridiculous. And with that, I conclude my little ramble on why Avatar 2 already makes no sense, with the biggest plot hole since the first movie still untouched in the second movie. Goodbye.
Avatar: The Way of Water.
Do you know what the real way of water is? The path of least resistance.